This short film you're seeing bits of right now looks great, right? But there's more to it than meets the eye. You see, this was made in Unreal Engine with normal game constraints in mind and is running in real time in Unreal. But even more impressive is the fact that it's made by a single developer over the course of about a week. This is called Memories of Australia, and it's a short film made by Embark Studios art director Andrew Swanberg Hamilton. The map with all of the assets is even available for free for Unreal Engine. It was made possible mostly thanks to some incredible new tech making its way into the video game industry, and in this video I want to take a look into some really impressive and promising ideas being explored by amazing developers around the world, to give a glimpse of what's coming over the next couple of years. Let's begin talking about photogrammetry, especially the improvements in the field that made the turnaround time for asset creation fast enough to enable the Australia demo to be made in such a short amount of time. Photogrammetry is when you take a series of high-resolution images of an object in the real world and use that to create a 3D asset with high-resolution textures. Normally, this is a time-consuming process with many steps along the way. Stockholm-based studio Embark Studios, however, has developed a tool that first reads in the photogrammetry data from the reality capture, then cleans up the geometry from triangles and non-manifold geometry that won't handle reduction well. It then reduces the geometry with good curvature to retention, automatically unwraps UVs with minimal distortion, no overlaps and a sensible UV shell count, bakes all of the needed textures, packs textures for the Unreal materials, exports that into the game project structure, and then imports and set it up as an asset in Unreal. If you didn't get all of that, that's fine. This is just taken directly from their own description of the process. Anyway, all of this is done in just a single click. A process that would normally take 3 to 5 days for a single asset now takes them 15 minutes. And I think this could revolutionize how assets are made and may improve the look of the games tremendously in the future. The next item on the list is also from Embark, but this time we'll look into their animation tool. By rigging a character model with physics and training it to move in a simulated environment using machine learning, the team at Embark Studios have managed to teach any creature, no matter their autonomy, to get from point A to point B. These animations you see right now have not been done by a human, but by an AI. Yet another thing that has some potential to make some big changes in how games are made. Star Citizen developer Cloud Imperium Games have, due to the ambitious nature of the game, made a lot of very interesting technologies in order to realize their ambition with the game. And thanks to the high amount of crowdfunding that the game still sees, they're not showing any signs of slowing down. And the crowdfunded nature also luckily means they're very open about the things they're doing, so there's a lot of information about these things available compared to other developers. One such piece of technology that they recently talked about in a video on their YouTube channel is a quantum economy simulation. By using simplified data from all AI characters in the game universe, they simulate each NPC's desires, skills, jobs, and inventory. Additionally, they each have an aggression value and a morality value to dictate their choices. With a high aggression and low morality score, a factory-working NPC might decide to take up piracy instead if security in the area is lowered. By simulating all of this, they can simulate the entire economy of goods and services. Combining this with the next item on the list, and the building blocks for a living, breathing world is there, with dynamically generated events that actually feel personal and real. So if you're traveling between 2 planets in a game, a random encounter may trigger and spawn, let's say, a pirate that attacks you. It's there, making decisions and being rendered, doing its actions. If you run away from it, when you get far away enough, it will despawn and simply cease to exist. This is how it's usually done in games. But in order to make the world feel simulated even if there is no one there, Cloud Imperium Games use virtual AIs. It is instead simulating that pirate in a more simplified form. His last known location is updated as he makes decisions on where to go and what to do, interacts with other virtual AIs, perhaps taking out a cargo ship, having the bounty increase, ships slightly damaged and affecting the supply and demand of goods. He may then decide to go to a shipyard nearby to repair. The new location is updated, and let us say a player browsing through the list of wanted criminals decides to go after just this pirate. It's only when the player actually becomes close to the NPC that it becomes rendered and upgraded to a real NPC. After the encounter, if the pirate is still alive, The second is no longer near any player. Instead of despawning like usually done, it's downgraded back to the lightweight version NPC. And both of these systems are working together in a cloud-based server that can scale depending on the needs, and the data can be fed into the game clients, servers and other gameplay systems seamlessly. And this sort of technology can enable more complex and engaging worlds in both single-player and multiplayer games of the future. Both Dual Universe developer Nova Quark and Star Citizen developer Cloud Imperium Games are both working on something called server meshing. By using cloud services like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud, they aim to dynamically scale and connect servers together, so that the perceived result is one gigantic server for millions of players. Let us say two players are on different servers and are traveling towards each other. If they were to pass one another, they normally wouldn't be able to see or interact with them at all. But with server meshing, these two servers could become one, merging them together in one seamless new server in the background, and suddenly they can interact. They can then scale the server into a bigger machine if more players decide to join the area. And the second someone leaves an area, it can begin to scale down while moving the leaving player into another new server. Think of it as a massive all-knowing entity with smaller branches of various sizes where they need to be. Instead of something like the many servers in traditional MMOs, you as a player only have one shared universe. Next up, let's look a bit at content generation. Procedural generation has been around for quite a while, but it's becoming more and more advanced. Cloud Imperium Games, for example, use it to create entire planets, while others use it on much smaller scales like here, where Embark Studios use procedural generation and AI to aid in content placement to speed up things like building a good-looking forest level. And over at Google, the R&D team at Stadia designed a tool to automate the iteration process of finding the right art style for a game. By making a grey 3D world early on in the process, and then giving the style transfer ML agent the reference image, will try to texturize the entire world in the style of the image you gave it. And this will allow developers to try out different art styles before settling on the right one for the game, without having to make all of these textures just to try something out. And this tool is already available to developers making games on the platform. The project Chimera that the same team was building on is a bit more unclear in its fate with the closure of Google's first-party studios, but hopefully this piece of tech is still under development. Because Chimera does several things. First of all, it uses machine learning to create art assets for each creature in this card game demo, including anytime it merges two creatures together. It then creates a background image as well and merges it all together. Chimera also has automatic balancing of effects built in order to manage the billions of possible creations in the game. Chimera even includes an opponent based on the same AI that famously defeated the world champion of Go a few years ago. And this opponent, however, tries to match the ability of the human player it plays against, to ensure a good challenge every time. The Stadia team has even talked about using Chimera in in-game testing to test things at scales humans simply couldn't do. This could enable smaller teams to make much bigger games, something which would enable more studios to fulfill their dreams. In this demo, the developers and Stadia created a simple football simulation, and then started adding more and more teams, balls, goals and obstacles. Obviously, eventually the system can't take it, and the frames take longer and longer to render. But by offloading the processing to more instances in the data center, the game can keep a smooth frame rate no matter the load. Imagine something like this used to make massive multiplayer games with physics and persistence on scales never seen before. And speaking of scale, Google is also using the data from all their users to smooth out the rendering. You see, when you install a game, it prepares a lot of the graphical renderings that will need to go on. But with the interactivity of games, there is simply no way to do this for everything. Some things can't be prepared by the developers because it's simply too much work to do by a team of developers. By writing to a shared pipeline cache every time any player experienced something that wasn't prepared before, Stadia can then grow the prepared rendering cache massively and use this to smooth out the gameplay for the next time a player experiences that part of the game. Gamers are simply helping out each other to make smoother sessions, and I love it. With technology improving in other areas of the online world, we're starting to see some of that data feed back into games, for example maps. We're mapping the world to use in navigation and a lot of other areas anyway, and sometimes real-world maps and location data can be used in games. Like how Microsoft's Flight Simulator uses Microsoft's own map data to create a complete Earth to fly in, and even uses real-world weather data in the game. or like how Google Maps have created an API for game developers to access in order to create cool game experiences based on real-world locations. And I think I would like to end on this one. Voice synthesis is becoming incredibly powerful, and so is conversational AIs. A Witcher 3 modder used deepfake technology to create original quests using the voice of Geralt, without actually contracting the voice actor Doug Cockle to record them.
I'm in a hurry, and you're hiding behind a child. So you'll live this time. I'm letting you. I'll come back for you one day. You realize that, right?
Then I shall keep an eye out for you.
And Google is working on a new generation of their assistant technology that can have natural language conversations with humans that are becoming eerily good.
I'm so curious about you.
I sense your excitement. Ask me anything.
Tell me what I would see if I visited.
You would get to see a massive canyon, some frozen icebergs, geysers, and some craters.
It sounds beautiful.
I assure you it is worth the trip. However, you need to bring your coat, because it gets really cold.
And with the face-over-IP technology that Star Citizen uses to allow for real-time animating the player character's face and head tracking just with a normal webcam, interactivity with NPCs and other players in the future may change a lot. The future of gaming is incredibly exciting, more so than ever, and it's way more than ray tracing and just pretty pixels and fast loading times. Some or all of these technologies discussed could end up becoming nothing in the end, but some or all of them could also become new standards for games and the making of them. And that is why I'm so excited. And also, I most certainly got several details wrong. I am just a layman after all, so please feel free to correct my mistakes in the comments. And tell me down there, what are your dreams for future of games? What is your dream game? Let us talk more in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you around.